Hey, this is Jackie with Metal Wani, and we're out in Mesa, Arizona at Club Red, and I'm here with Bill from Carcass. How are you?
All right, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, you guys are on tour right now with Night Demon, Ghoul, and Crowbar. How's the tour been going so far?
Very well, yeah. It's always nice if you get off on the right foot. Yeah, instantly everyone seemed to be getting along, cooperating. Musically it's pretty harmonious too, because all the bands are heavy but in a different way, so I don't think anyone's stepping on anyone else's toes stylistically. Yeah, it's just good vibes so far. Yeah, no complaints at all.
A different crowd because of all the styles, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Crowbar bring their people with them. Some of them would probably never go to a Carcass gig otherwise. And then you have people who actually naturally like both bands to begin with. But I think it's been good for everybody because the audiences are quite varied and they seem very up for it. You know, it's a long evening when you're watching four bands, but if each one of those bands is a little bit different from the previous one, it can be done.
So it's been three years since the release of Surgical Steel, and you guys are still able to tour for that album. Not many bands get to do that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was a lot of demand for you guys to come back from your fans?
It seems that way, going on recent evidence. Yeah, I mean, you're right though, it's a hell of a long time to be touring an album, I think. But I guess things are a little different these days. You know, I'm a big part of my head is still, you know, stuck in the old days, and to me it felt like, oh, you've got to do an album every 2 years or so, and there's a limit to how much touring you can do off the back of one album. But we've gone well past that, you know, whatever that limit was in those days with this record. But I believe by the end of this year we'll pretty much have done everything we can possibly do, justifiably. And yeah, who knows? You know, if there's still a willingness there at the end of it, yeah, maybe we would tackle another record.
So the American fan base of Carcass is still growing. We've seen you guys play 90-minute shows in Europe. That recent tour with Anthrax and Slayer did expose you to new fans. Would you say that you guys now have a lot of support from American fans?
Yeah, definitely, because it's always been a good country for us, no mistake about that. But if I was to compare now to, say, the later days of our original incarnation, say around '94, things weren't that good for us here. I mean, we could tour, so that there was that, but it wasn't like we were packing venues, and there wasn't quite the same enthusiasm in the air. So it's nice that things have come around again for what we're doing. And the Slayer thing was a very big deal because that's a very different audience. You're reaching a whole load of people who didn't know of your existence, never mind your music. You know, I think every night you could see some people who knew our stuff, you know, maybe fans even, but they were very much in the minority. So it's super cool to just reach all these new people. And fortunately for us, they were into it. You know, we were bracing ourselves for some hostility, but there really wasn't any that we could see.
That's good that you had a really good experience touring with them.
Yeah, it was just all positive. As I was saying earlier, in the previous interview, it was just astounding really how much integrity and respect emanates from that camp. You know, like Slayer, band and crew, very, very cool. Yeah, it was quite inspiring to see how they operate. And on top of that, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, some of the best metal music out there, so yeah, it was a very good experience for us.
Awesome. So with the success of Surgical Steel comes the expectations and the pressure to surpass it with your new albums. But obviously we know that at the end it matters that the band wrote an album that they're most proud of. Is that something you agree with?
Definitely, yeah. You can't really expect anybody to get into something if you're not into it yourself. It's got to begin with that. It's got to begin with, you know, what turns you on musically, and that's a good starting point. Not everyone will see it your way. Not everyone will hear what you hear in something. but some people will, because I think people sense if something's genuine. If it's really sincere, like it or not, people will at least have some kind of respect for it, I think. And the pressures, I mean, it's kind of a tricky one, because it's not like we're a band the size of Metallica or something, where that's a different kind of pressure altogether. But yeah, if there's any expectation, aimed at you, then yeah, there can be some pressures, and I guess it's a case of how much you want to buy into that. But I personally think what we need to do whenever we create is just switch off that part of our brains, because you just drive yourself crazy if you're trying to imagine what other people think of this before you've even finished it. So you just do the thing you want to do, put everything you have into it, and see how it flies with other people. You can't control that part of the equation.
Everyone has different tastes, so it's difficult.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we were very lucky with this record, Surgical. It did, far beyond our expectations. So maybe we won't be as lucky next time, if there is a next time. You can't take anything for granted. Yeah. But that wouldn't be our main worry. The main worry for us would be trying to get some music nailed that we're really happy with.
So we recently had a talk with singer from At the Gates, Thomas. He did express how difficult and how much effort it takes to release an album after a decade of absence. You guys did that, and you proved that you're better than ever. Do you feel like it is hard to come back after such a long break?
It can be. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what Jeff would say about this one. But yeah, personally speaking, I don't think it was hard at all, really. It was very, very enjoyable. Like the so-called writing process, which is really a case of just bringing in a bunch of riffs to the rehearsal room, and then everyone blasting through them and kind of chipping away at the arrangements. And that can be sorted out in one rehearsal, or it can be sorted out over a space of weeks, but whatever it takes to get the tune to where you want it to be. But yeah, all of that was very, very enjoyable. Like the ideas were just flowing. It was a really good dynamic between the three of us, Dan, Jeff, and I. And yeah, I'd be up for doing something of that nature again further down the line. But yeah, I've certainly lost the thread. What was the initial? What was the initial question? I've totally forgotten.
How it's difficult to come back after such a long break.
I guess that's what I was trying to say. Is like, I didn't feel like it was hard. We did work hard, if you know what I mean. We put loads of time and energy into it, but yeah, it was kind of
natural.
Yeah, it was kind of effortless in a way, because the music was just flowing, and we could have written even more material. We had to kind of stop. We got to about 50 numbers or something, and we thought, well, this is more than enough for an album, so we'll just get all of this down and then pick the ones we think really belong on the LP, and then the rest can be an EP down the line. So yeah.
So the band does have a very unique sound. It does sound like a lot of the members do have a lot of the same influences. Your sound has been very consistent throughout your discography. What would you say has influenced you, and how do you keep those elements within each album?
Yeah, I'm really biased, obviously, because I'm involved in the band, and so I can't really hear it the way other people would. I don't know. I always think of it as being quite a strange mix of different elements, and there's a ton of bands out there, I think, do something far purer than we do. They'll have a style and they'll stick doggedly with that, and they don't really include too many outside elements. There are some bands that are just 100% death metal. Yeah. There's nothing about it that could be described otherwise. And I think with us, more often than not, we're going to have that tag, and it's understandable. But there's some elements in our sound that may be a bit older, maybe occasionally melodic, but we still have those kind of nasty riffs, the weird note combinations that are really jarring to listen to. So I guess we want all of that thrown into the melting pot, really. And, yeah, it's become its own kind of entity, really. The Carcass music. I mean, if I was doing a heavy band alone, it wouldn't sound quite like this, because it's something that happens between me and Jeff, really.
Yeah, the chemistry.
Yeah.
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 So, the sound, like I said, I was talking about the sound. That also does go with at shows. We've had some incidents lately where artists are actually being annoyed of fans using their phones. We've had some incidents with Corey Taylor and Carl Sanders. How do you feel about fans using their phone during your show?
You mean filming or texting or
Texting.
I mean, it's not ideal, but goodness, I mean, if someone wants to do that, it's their business, I guess. I mean, I do understand the frustration. I mean, on occasion, I've done gigs, not necessarily with this band, but with other bands I played in, and there's a whole number of people lining the front of the stage just filming.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, it's not my place to tell people what to do. They bought a ticket. They can enjoy themselves in whatever way they wish, as long as it's not hurting anyone. But it did seem strange to me, because I thought, I go to gigs myself just as a punter, because I still get a buzz off live music, and I just wouldn't do that, because I want to be there in that moment, experiencing it. And as soon as you do this for any length of time, you're removing yourself from the situation, and you're kind of cheesing yourself a bit, because you're kind of missing out on the proper experience. You're already viewing it at a distance as it's happening. But yeah, as far as I can tell, you can't stop people. They'll do what they wish.
So we also recently had a talk with Michael Ammett from Arch Enemy. He kind of mentioned the possibility of a tour package including Carcass and themselves. Kind of like an idea. Now, we don't know when and if this is possible, but do you feel like people would really like that you guys would tour and possibly, play shows together?
I'm sure a bunch of people would. Yeah, I mean, the door would always be open for that kind of thing, because we've got a long history with Michael. We're all still friends. The audiences are fairly similar. They're not exactly the same, because Carcass is an older band, but there's definitely enough of a crossover and enough things in common for that kind of thing to work. So yeah, who knows? I'm actually very surprised. I'd never heard about this, and it's funny that you mention it. Yeah.
So will this be the last tour for Surgical Steel?
Strangely enough, no.
No.
I can't believe I'm saying it. Yeah, I mean, if it comes off, there's talk of us doing a short American tour at the end of this year, which will be a whole bunch of places we haven't played yet.
Okay.
So there is that. I mean, it would be a worthwhile endeavour, because there's all these little nooks and crannies, especially in the southern states, that we haven't really gotten into.
Yeah.
And it would be fun. I mean, I like playing the slightly more unusual places, because they can really surprise you. And just as a tourist, it's very fun, getting to explore somewhere out of the way that isn't on your usual touring circuit.
It's not main markets like LA and...
Well, yeah, I mean, if you do a tour, there's always going to be an LA and a New York and a Chicago, and those places are great, but they're expected to be great. If you play somewhere that's lesser visited, I guess it's going to, well, at the very least, it's going to be interesting. Sometimes you don't pull many people, it's a bit drab, but other times it can be super cool. I love the smaller gigs. I mean, the smaller club gigs are the ones I'm more comfy with, as opposed to, the big shows or outdoor festivals or whatever.
Because it's a more intimate setting with your fans?
Yeah, I just think the music works better in a room.
Yeah.
As opposed to outdoors. I just think this kind of music in broad daylight, outside,
Doesn't bring the same energy?
Not for me. I mean, occasionally it works, but I'd say that's the exception to the rule. It's usually a bit weird. And if you're lucky, you get put on later when it's dark, and that helps, but it's still not quite as powerful as playing into, 800 people in a club or 500 or whatever.
Yeah. So what's next for Carcass?
Complete this tour. We have a few festivals dotted around. Then potentially that final US run. Well, hopefully not final, but you know what I mean. The last one for this album. We'll see. I mean, nothing's set in stone, but that's the last thing I heard. It was definitely being discussed. Yeah.
All right. right. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time today. Good luck with the rest of the tour, and again, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Cheers.